Here are the ingredients that you will need for your first soup. We're going to be making a chicken curry. You need the juice from 2 limes. This is 4 chopped garlic cloves, 3 green onions that have been chopped, a handful of cilantro, probably about 2 ounces of mushrooms. This is just what I had left in a container from another dish. As many mushrooms as you want is great in here. This is 4 heads of bok choy that has been chopped up. I have chopped up 5 chicken thighs. And then for our broth, I'm going to add in 12 ounces of chicken broth. I didn't have any boxed or homemade, so I just made water and this reduced sodium, better than bouillon that I get at Costco. A can of coconut milk, this red Thai curry sauce. This comes from Trader Joe's, but you can find alternate brands at your regular grocery store. And then I'm going to saute our chicken in this avocado oil. I will be making our soup in a Dutch oven, but you could certainly stick all of this into an Instant Pot or into a crock pot if you don't have a Dutch oven. For sides, I'm going to chop up this pineapple, and then I'm going to make some basmati rice. We are going to start by adding 1 tablespoon of avocado oil to a Dutch oven. All 3 of the soups that I'll be making today will be using a Dutch oven. Once your oil has heated, you're just going to go ahead and add your chicken thighs and begin to brown them. If you're new to my channel, my name is Marissa, also known as Homemaking with Marissa on YouTube as well as on Instagram. I make lifestyle videos here on YouTube, things like what's for dinner, cleaning motivation, overall homemaking tips, parenting advice, and periodically I will share DIY or financial tips. If this is something that you're interested in, I would love it if you would join my little YouTube community by subscribing to my channel. Next, we're just going to add the juice from our 2 limes before we add all of our vegetables to our pot. The goal is not to cook everything through at this point. We're just sauteing our vegetables slightly and beginning to brown our chicken. Everything will finish cooking and becoming tender once we add our broth. To this pot, I'm going to add an entire jar of the Thai curry sauce. Again, this comes from Trader Joe's, but you can find something comparable at your local grocery store. I'm also going to add our chicken broth. If you'd like to make this vegan, you can omit the chicken, sub it for garbanzo beans, and then add vegetable broth to this. Finally, I'm just going to put in our 1 can of coconut milk, stir everything till it's well combined, and then I'm going to put the lid on our pot and let it sit for about 30 minutes on a medium heat. Once everything is heated through, your vegetables have softened, and your chicken is completely cooked through, you are ready to serve this up. I make this dish every year for Halloween, and it is a family favorite. My husband does not really like soup, but this soup he does very much enjoy. When I'm slicing up an entire pineapple, I do save the core. I don't worry about getting super close to the core. I don't have any sort of special tool to get it out. I just cut around it and then cut it into chunks to put into the kids' smoothies. It's pretty fibrous, so I wouldn't just give it to them plain. That wouldn't be very good. But when you blend it up in a smoothie, it sweetens the smoothie and also adds a little bit of extra fiber from the core. Here is what our soup looks like once it's been plated up. This is such a good dish. If you ever end up making one of my recipes, make sure and tag me on Instagram. My name is the same as my YouTube channel. It's just Homemaking with Marissa. Next, I'm going to be making a taco soup. For this recipe, I am using 1 pound of ground beef, a can of diced tomatoes, a can of green chilies, 1 can of pinto beans, some taco seasoning, And then I've chopped up 1 small onion. These are the mini bell peppers that I buy at the store. So there is a yellow, an orange, and a red. A handful of cilantro, 6 cloves of garlic, and then I will juice 1 lime. When I'm serving this, I'm just going to chop up this avocado, grate some cheese, and serve it with some sour cream. Just going to start by browning up our ground beef. I'm using a grass-fed local ground beef. You could use ground chicken, you could use ground turkey, whatever your family's preference is. Anytime you're making tacos would work perfectly fine in this recipe. Once your meat has browned, I'm just going to add the juice from our lime before adding our taco seasoning. Never really decide if that juicer is worth the hassle of cleaning it later. I always struggle with actually getting it to juice things properly. If you have a recommendation of a juicer, go ahead and comment it down below. If you just squeeze it by hand, let me know in the comments as well. I'm just going to eyeball the amount of taco seasoning. We like our food really well seasoned, so I add quite a bit of taco seasoning to this ground beef before I add all of the vegetables. And just like the prior soup, I'm going to brown everything up, start to tenderize and caramelize the vegetables before I go ahead and add our broth. I love all of the colors in this particular dish, but you could sub it for anything that you like inside of your tacos. You could put beans in here. You could sub it for different vegetables. You could add fresh tomatoes, whatever your preference is. I'm just going to add 1/2 cup of water to kind of loosen up some of the seasoning and add a little bit of liquid before I add the other liquid components to our dish. I'm going to be adding a can of diced tomatoes. These are just plain, unseasoned, unsalted diced tomatoes that come in bulk from Costco. I'm going to be adding some diced green chilies, and then I'm going to add a can of pinto beans. My kids only will eat pinto beans. They don't like black beans, they don't like kidney beans, they don't like navy beans, they don't like garbanzo beans. They're quite picky when it comes to their beans, so for my family and our taste preferences, I will be doing pinto beans, but you could certainly substitute it for any bean of choice. I don't bother removing the liquid from the beans because this is going to be a soup. I go ahead and add that in as well and find that it does a good job of helping thicken the soup up a little bit. Now I'm just going to stir everything together and make sure that all of our flavors are really well incorporated before I put on our lid and allow it to simmer for 30 minutes. What our soup looks like after it has simmered on a medium-low heat for 30 minutes. I like to serve mine with just cheese and avocado. Here is what my serving looks like, but my husband likes to eat his on top of saltine crackers, which personally I think is kind of weird, but he's always eaten it that way. He just puts a layer of saltine crackers at the bottom and then puts this over the top, then tops it with cheese, avocado, and sour cream. This is what his dish looked like at dinner time. And it wouldn't really be a fall cook with me video if I did not include something that was pumpkin flavored. For this soup, I am going to use olive oil, 12 ounces of milk, 12 ounces of chicken broth, a handful of baby carrots, 1 chopped onion, an entire head of garlic, a can of diced tomatoes, a can of pumpkin. You want to make sure you're not using pumpkin pie filling here. You're using actual canned pumpkin. I'm going to top mine with these pumpkin seeds. These came from Target, but you can pick up pumpkin seeds anywhere. I've seen them at Trader Joe's. I've seen them at my regular grocery store. This time of year, you can easily find pumpkin seeds. I'm going to start by just slicing up all of our vegetables. I'm going to chop up our carrots, our onion, our garlic, make sure that everything is in uniform chunks and ready to be sauteed in the same Dutch oven that I've used for the prior 2 recipes. This is another dish that could easily be made vegan if you just substitute the chicken broth for vegetable broth and the dairy milk for a coconut, or I even think that oat milk would be really good in this. Both of those are thick, non-dairy alternatives. I've added about a tablespoon of olive oil to the bottom of our Dutch oven, and now I'm just going to put in our vegetables, the onion, the garlic, the carrots. Make sure that those get really nice and caramelized before I add our other ingredients. If you have any recipes that you always make every fall for your family, go ahead and comment them down below. I'm always looking for new recipe ideas to share with my family. Just making sure that everything is really well incorporated here, and the onion and the garlic and the carrot start to combine together before I add our can of pumpkin. This dish does not have an overwhelming pumpkin flavor, even though you're using an entire can, and it's definitely the primary ingredient, I would say, in this recipe, but it still doesn't have a really overwhelming pumpkin flavor. I think that a lot of times people misinterpret pumpkin pie spice flavoring for the flavor of actual pumpkin. This is a dish that all of my kids ate and enjoyed. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add our can of diced tomatoes, our broth, and our milk. I will put the lid back onto the Dutch oven and again allow this to simmer on a medium-low heat for 30 minutes. I did realize that I had forgotten to season it with salt and pepper, so I did that while it was simmering on the stovetop. Now, there are a couple different ways you can serve this soup. You can serve it chunky like I am here and top it with the pumpkin seeds, or you can also wait for it to cool down slightly, add it to a high-powered blender. I am using a Vitamix, pulse it on a high speed for about 30 seconds, and for this particular dish, I was making it as leftovers, so I did go ahead and reheat it back on the stove and served it pureed. This is my preference. I like to serve any soup with homemade bread. I'm going to show you the recipe that I use. I just use a bread machine. The specific bread machine that I have is no longer available, but I will link something comparable in the description box down below. For this recipe, you're going to need 1.5 cups of milk, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 4 cups of flour, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. I order my yeast in huge containers off of Amazon. They come, I think it's a pound of yeast that I get at a time. So to make sure that it stays fresh, I just keep mine in a mason jar in the refrigerator and have never had a problem with it going bad. I have had this I bought this at the beginning of quarantine, still have a ton of it left. My last 1 pound thing of yeast lasted for several years and I never had any problem with it not still being active when I wanted to make bread. To make this dish, you're just going to take all of your ingredients, put them in your bread machine, and turn it on to the 2-pound loaf setting. I have received a lot of comments asking if you have to put the liquid on the bottom, the dry ingredients on the top, or vice versa. I have not found that it really makes any difference when I'm making bread, the order that I put the ingredients in. I do try to put the yeast on the top and make sure that it's not immediately saturated in the liquid. and have found that that does improve slightly the quality of the bread. But other than that, I've not found that there's any sort of rhyme, reason, or specific order that I need to put these ingredients into the bread pan. Now, unfortunately, after filming this video, my bread machine stopped working. So I am now in the market for a new bread machine. If you have any recommendations of one that you have and you like, go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. Bread machines are a little bit pricey, but I absolutely love having one. I use it to make doughs, rolls, and bread. I want to thank you all for watching today. If you're new to my channel and haven't done so already, you can subscribe by clicking on my face on the right side of your screen. I also have an additional video for you to watch on the left side of my screen. I hope you're all staying happy and healthy. Bye!